Station, this is Isa Piero. How can you hear me?
I hear you loud and clear. How are you, Jules?
We hear you loud and clear. It's great to see you, Sophie. And I give the word immediately to Niamh Shaw from the Irish Time.
Hello, Sophie. Waiting from
Hi,
Ireland.
everyone.
So back in 2022, when ESA announced class, a lot of us saw a dream realized. So now, 3 years later, you're the first of that class, now completing a full 6-month mission, living on board the ISS. So, Sophie, what has surprised you the most about the reality of becoming an astronaut, personally and professionally? Thank you.
You know, it's it's really a challenge to answer this question because everything when you become an astronaut is mind-blowing. Personal and professional life are just upside down. Everything you learned before is useful, but everything changes. That said, I would say that in the past 3 years, I've trained a lot for all of the emergencies. And so we were ready, and astronauts are ready to handle any kind of emergencies. But when we arrive, literally, everything goes smoothly. And so in the end, daily life here is going very well. All the hardware is very reliable. We don't have emergencies every day, but we are very well trained for that. And this is a huge difference between training and the real life in here.
And now the word goes to Martha Melli in French.
Bonjour, Sophie. Vous avez
You took part in the first space-to-space call with the crew of Artemis II mission. What did you feel then when you spoke to them? How did you follow the various stages of their journey around the moon and their return from the ISS?
Merci pour cette question. Pour nous, c'était
Thank you very much for this question. That was really a huge event to be able to speak to the Artemis II mission team, to imagine that they were actually lifting off, to feel the emotions that all of you probably shared as well when you saw the liftoff, and then actually talking to them. It was almost unreal. We were all covered in goosebumps, and I think we discussed it afterwards, and we all felt that it was absolutely amazing that we had two teams who were both in space talking to each other, one who journeyed around the moon. There was a lot of emotion. It was very cheerful and joyful for us. It was a big moment for all of us.
And we go back to Christoph Seidler.
Sophie, good to talk to you. Your hair always looks spectacular. And I have a very hands-on question. Is long hair in space practical? Is it annoying? Is it dangerous at times? Where do the hairs end up that fall out? And do you get to wash? Thank you.
Thank you for your very day-to-day question. I love this question. Of course, I had a lot of the same question before coming here. But the answer is kind of easy and was surprising at the beginning, actually. So the hair is not falling. Hair needs a force to fall. So I brush it twice a day, and all of the hair is falling on my hairbrush and not in station. It's very interesting. It's very different as in gravity environment, because on Earth, of course, they are falling. But in here, it is very different. And there have been decades of women with long hair in space, and so far, no problem. So yeah, it's not a safety problem for sure. On a day-to-day basis, I attach them together. It's more convenient. But yeah, for sharing my experiences to everyone, I like to have them a bit wild like this. It's a lot of fun too.
La parole maintenant à Sébastien Loff-Lecoq de Énergie.
The floor to Sebastian Loff-Lecoq from NRJ. Hello, as Thomas Pesquet, I would like to know how can you actually inspire young people about protecting the planet, the environment and Spain? As you are only the second French woman to go into the ISS, what is your special message for young girls who would dream to become scientists, engineers, pilots or astronauts in the future?
Merci pour cette question qui me touche beaucoup parce
qu'en
fait, je suis passée par là, par celle qui écoutait les interviews à la radio, à la télé,
I obviously used to listen to all the interviews and I would cut out articles from the newspaper. I had this passion which was actually fueled with all these different interviews and articles. And it's very important for me to share that excitement and emotion. Young children, whoever they may be, boys, girls, from whatever sort of background, there's room for everybody here, and it's everybody's dream. And if it is your dream, you should really go for it. There should be no limit, no holding back. You will be able to do it. You will be able to contribute and have a very exciting and fabulous life, exciting and fun. You'll be able to work on wonderful projects and work with other teams who are equally enthusiastic as you. And perhaps I might be lucky enough to be able to work with one of you in the future, because if I could actually inspire someone who a few years later will say to me, look, I'm working with you, but you were my source of inspiration all those years ago, I'd be thrilled, because that would show that there's a connection from generation to generation, and I'd be delighted to be able to shed that sort of excitement and share it with others.
Et on continue en français avec Martin.
Another question in French from Martin Leduc.
Bonjour Sophie, merci de
Hi Sophie, thank you for setting aside some time for us. So this is my question. Since you've been on the ISS, what is the most improbable, unlikely skill that you have learned during your training that ultimately did come in use?
Merci de cette question. En fait,
thanks for this question. Well, what's quite amusing is that the most unlikely skills are the ones that actually you don't necessarily use, particularly medical emergencies. I think the most unlikely thing that I learned was to learn, for example, how to take out a tooth and do some basic dental work. So we're all ready for unexpected events with Crew 11. We are ready and prepared for the unexpected, and obviously that is very important. So that is the sort of skills that we have, but we hope that we don't ever have to use. But also what we do learn on our everyday training basis is that we have to learn to be flexible, adapt to whatever happens with a big smile, cheerfully, because even if that has an impact on your agenda, on your day, you've got to actually just get on with it. And we've been lucky so far. We've not actually had any problems. The only problem we had was the problems with the toilets, but that was sorted really quickly. And we can say that since we started operations here, we've been lucky. And when you have a day which is set where there is some sort of incident, you've got to learn to quickly deal with it and switch to that. But you learn that and everything's going fine.
Bonjour Sophie, Sylvain Rousseau pour France
Hi,
24.
I'm Sylvie Rousseau for France 24. I'd like to say that you're actually carrying out quite a lot of scientific experiments. Some of them are French. Does that mean something to you, something special as being the ambassador for French science in space?
Alors effectivement, oui, c'est
Yes.
à la fois un honneur et une grande joie.
It's a great honor and it's a great joy for me, but also a huge responsibility. I feel as if I am following in the footsteps of hundreds of other French scientists who have done their utmost to put French science in the forefront. And for me, to be able to share that passion that I have for science and work on these sorts of scientific experiments is exciting. And I want to say say to the young today that there's still so much to do. There's just something here that I'd like to show you. Jessica and Chris are working on an experiment for cancer. And the sort of studies we are carrying out for cancer studies will be used actually in practical ways. It will have a practical impact. So I'd like to say to all the young who are watching or who may be following this, it's exciting. There's a lot to do. There's a lot more to learn and a lot more to study. So I'd like to say to all the young people, go for it, study, and I'd be really delighted to work with as many as possible in the future. And as a French person, I'm really delighted to be part of the scientific community. Hi, Sophie. I'm Christine Chapelle for TFN and LCI. Most of the astronauts who've been fortunate enough to go to space, whether they are astronauts or tourists, have a completely different view of our Earth, of our planet afterwards. Have things changed for you, seeing Earth from afar?
Écoutez, sans aucun doute, j'ai été
well, yes, absolutely. I was as marked as all previous and present astronauts who have seen the Earth from space. And I would also like to say that this really is one of the top 3 events that have changed my view of life, of our planet, of Earth. But to talk about this particular scientific experiment, obviously there is a pre and post moment. And apart from the emotions that I've talked about several times before, the excitement, the joy of seeing our planet, Earth, but it's also the sort of perspective that it gives you. When you look at our Earth in this way, you can see that everything is united. In fact, geography, the continents, countries. When you're on Earth, you feel that there are fixed borders. But in fact, when you're here and you see what our planet Earth looks like, you can see that everything's connected. The sea, the sky, the clouds, the countries, everything. And so if we want to protect our planet together, we too have to be united. We have to work together and go in the same direction. That is the sort of perspective which I think is amazing. The fact that everything is connected, is unified, and I think we should, human beings, go in that way as well so that we can protect this Earth of ours.
Thank you, Sophie. We switch back to English with Sonia Biskan from Poland.
Hello, Sonia Agata-Biszczyn, TVP World, Polish TV, and what an amazing opportunity to ask a question in this setting. Sophie, you were part of the 2022 ESA astronaut class together with the Polish Znański-Wiśniewski. What part of your training at the European Astronaut Center or elsewhere would you say has proven to be the most useful for you on the International Space Station? And do you recall any memorable moments from training with Sławosz?
Thank you very much for this question. Actually, yes, I do remember very well doing like some very tiny bits of training. I mean, not very specifically for my mission. I was busy in my training flow and he was busy too, but we had a couple meetings together. Like we were getting ready for the same space adventure, right? And launching from a rocket. And so we had a very few meetings together. That said, I would say that one thing that is very mind-blowing is international cooperation, and this is something you train for by going into different countries and understanding international cooperation. You know, when you're working all together on a project that is so huge that all of the international scientists or engineers or competencies are gathered together and work together on finding solutions and making progress for science, then you understand that you not only bring very valuable resources together, but also very different cultural backgrounds. And let me tell you a very fun anecdote about this. Because in space, it's the same. We are different nationalities working with different international teams on the ground. And so my anecdote is that it's about daily life, but we all come with little gifts to everyone for birthdays or different celebrations. And in our crew, it's a fun joke that we have. We offer socks because our uniform socks are usually black. And so we want to celebrate by offering very fun socks. But we just learned recently that in one of the country of our crew members, after offering a sock, a pair of socks, this meant not the same thing as in our culture. It means that it's like offering red roses or saying "I love you" to a person. So as a crew, we had a lot of laugh about like cultural differences, and this is something like working in different cultural environments is something you learn right away from the beginning in spaceflight, and it's a very fun experience.
We'll continue in French. Tobias Meyer.
Bonjour de Vienne.
Hello, I'm in Vienna. In the last few months, you have gained thousands of new followers on social media. What is your challenges? What are the objectives you may have being on her platforms, social media platforms, producing content from space? And how do you plan to use your growing outreach when you're back on Earth?
Merci beaucoup pour cette question. Mais écoutez, pour
Thank
moi,
you
une
for
des
your
valeurs que
question.
j'ai et que j'aurai toujours, c'est rester
I think
authentique et naturel et passer
one
mon
of
ressenti, mes
the
émotions sans filtre.
main
Et je pense que ça,
assets
vous le
or
comprenez, je suis
plus
assez
points
naturelle même sur
is that
toutes
I
mes
will
publications.
remain
Donc, c'est vraiment important
completely
pour moi, cette
natural and
authenticité.
ordinary and
Ce qui est sûr, c'est
authentic in
que
sharing
ce
my
contenu est
opinions.
fait
And I
grâce au
think you've
soutien des
understood
équipes
by now that that's the
impressionnantes.
way
On
I
a un
am.
staff
I
qui
think
est assez
that
conséquent,
we do
autant à la
have
NASA qu'à l'ESA, qui
huge
nous aide à
followers,
faire tous
and
ces
at
contenus. Mais c'est pas
NASA
moi
and
personnellement
ESA, we
qui
have
travaille
lots of
dessus.
people who
Donc
help
merci à
us
eux.
with
J'en
content.
profite pour
I'm not
leur dire un
alone,
grand
and
merci
I'd
parce
like
qu'ils
to make
travaillent
the most of
d'arrache-pied
this opportunity to
pour faire
thank
en
all
sorte
of
que ce
them
soit possible.
because they really
Mais
do
écoutez, ce que
do a fabulous
ce que
job
je
and
souhaite en
help a
faire en
lot.
retour, c'est continuer
But
à faire
what
ce que
I
je
would
fais
like to do when I get
maintenant.
back,
Et ici,
well,
déjà, c'est
continue to do what I'm
partager avec le
doing
plus grand
when I'm
nombre. En
here.
fait,
That is
cette aventure est
reaching out to
tellement
as many people as
extraordinaire dans le sens
possible.
qu'il sort de
I can say that
l'ordinaire et
this
donne une perspective
experience has been
différente et puis
so
du coup
extraordinary,
une compréhension
so
de la vie,
different from
des
anything that
écosystèmes
one
de la
can
planète
imagine.
qui est
We
vraiment
can really
particulière.
understand the
Donc
planet's
voilà, continuer
ecosystems
à
in
transmettre tout ça.
a very
Après le
special
retour de ma
manner. So I'd
mission,
like to
j'aurai un
continue
post-flight
working
tour
on
qui
that and
dure
sharing
aux
that.
alentours de 6 mois à
Now,
1 an,
I think when we
dans
get back,
lequel je ferai le tour des
we
pays
have a 6 months,
européens
1 year
et beaucoup aussi avec l'accent
post-back
bien sûr en
tour,
France
and
et
I will
j'aurai
be
à
going
cœur
to European
justement
countries
de
and other
partager
parts
de
of the
vive voix
world, and
cette fois-ci
obviously in
avec
different parts of
ceux
France, and I'll be able to talk
qui
about
veulent
my
entendre
experiences
tous ces messages en
and
fait. Et je pense que c'est
talk
important,
about
c'est comme
what
ça
I've
moi-même que
experienced
j'ai
and
pu
send out these messages.
progresser
I think
dans
that's
ma
important
vie
as
en
well,
recevant
because
l'inspiration
in
avec
my
des
life,
rencontres
I
directes.
have been
Donc
inspired
j'espère
in that
continuer
way
en fait
by meeting
et
people
passer le témoin à mon
who
tour.
had these sort of messages to send across, and I hope I'll be able to do the same. Now, Quentin Choquet from La Provence.
Bonjour Sophie, merci tout
Hi,
d'abord pour ces belles
Sophie.
photos
Thank you
de
for the
Marseille.
wonderful
Vous avez
images
travaillé
that
avant
you
votre
sent
arrivée chez
of
Airbus, il était
Marseille.
à
Now, you
Marignane
worked in
au début de votre
Marignane for
carrière en
Airbus
tant qu'ingénieur.
helicopters right at the
Est-ce que les
beginning when you were a
apprentissages
young
issus de cette
engineer.
expérience vous
And do
servent
you
aujourd'hui
feel that
dans
any of
votre
the skills you learned during then are helping you in your current role?
Merci, avec plaisir pour les photos de Marseille.
Thank you, and I'm glad you enjoyed the photographs of Marseille, and there will be other photographs of other regions. I've got several
voilà, elles seront publiées au fur et à
images,
mesure.
in fact hundreds of them, and they will be shared with you, obviously, while I'm here and also when I get back, when I can organize things better. Yeah, I think what I learned in Marignane did help, and I've often said that in a life of an astronaut, whatever experience you've had before or learned is useful. And I can say that as an engineer, what I've learned that when you want to actually work on complex issues, you need time. Building a helicopter, for example, is something which is very complicated and complex. You need to have time, you need to be inventive, you sometimes have to really slog hard, you have to have meetings. It may not be really a lot of fun on a daily basis, but everybody's working on the same thing, on the same project, to come up with a helicopter with a machine that can fly. And I think it's the same thing for manned flights. I'm actually building an ISS, flying to the ISS. None of this is easy. All these tasks may seem on a daily basis to be quite repetitive, cumbersome, difficult, but we need all sorts of input, and all the teams have to have a single goal, and that is to have a laboratory in space in orbit. And therefore, I think that space exploration takes time, space experiments take time. I learned that on a very smaller scale when I was working on helicopters, but I have a wonderful experience and memory of my time at Airbus Helicopters, and I'm delighted that you are here from that part of France. Unfortunately, that's the only time we had today. I'd like to thank all the participants and see you soon.
Thank you, everyone on the ground. Thank you to all of the journalists. You're doing an incredible job, relaying the information to share and the nice words to share with everyone. So I really value all of your work, and I really wanted to thank you from the bottom of my heart. Have a good one. Have a good day.
Station, this is Houston ACR. Thank you. Merci. That concludes our event.
Copy. Resuming normal communication.
Thank you to all participants. The station, we are now resuming operational audio communications.